Hello YouTube, this is Brian Tubbs coming at you with another video. This is a video kind of following the last portion of the video, or the last video, when I was showing you guys the new piece called Ivy, the one that we took out of the center of the two curls. And I promised you that I would show you guys how we make the leaves. Now, this leaf is not going to be the same as the ivy piece, but this leaf is going to be from a one that we call leaf. Let me see if I can find a picture of it, just for you guys who has not seen it yet. Okay, this is the piece, if you guys can see it, that we call leaf. It just has one large leaf on top, and it stands on a base on its own. It stands about 6 feet tall, which is a little bit less than the other one. But that's kind of what this piece is going to look like. So for today, I'm going to be adding another wall. This is the other wall for the piece. I'll kind of bring it a little bit closer to you guys. This is the other, what I consider a wall, and it's kind of shaped like this. It kind of rolls. So it's following the leaf pattern on this side, because I've already put the wall up on this opposite side. So I have this wall up. I will put this wall up, and then I will take this portion of the leaf and lay it on top of that piece, and then get it all tacked in. And then after I do that, I will be taking the stainless steel, rod, and laying the vines on here, or the veins, just to make it look like the leaf that we make. I mean, other artists, I'm not sure, I've never seen a leaf like this one, nor ivy, I've never seen anyone do leaves like that. So I can't even say what other artists do, but I know what we do. I think we are the originals to do it like we do it with the rods. I've not seen one like it before. So then we'll take, like as I said, I'll take this piece, lay it on top of that piece, tack it all in. And then once I get it tacked in, I will either go ahead and TIG weld the entire perimeter on both sides. And then after I'm finished with that, I'll get this piece. There's two pieces here, a front and back. And what I'll do is weld the front and back together. We have another wall, if you will, that will come down the side here and here, down the side here. And then once we get that all put together, let me see if I can stand this heavy thing up with one hand. It'll be like this. And then it'll sit inside, kind of like that. Hope you guys can see that. Kind of a big piece, but it'll sit inside like that. And then after that, we take this whole assembly, get our measurement on the front here and on the sides, and then we'll make our base. Our base will taper from the ground coming up to whatever these dimensions are. Then once we get the base made, then we'll take this piece and just set it down into the base, weld it in. And then you have your 6 feet 1, 6 feet 2 tall leaf. People put them in their gardens, they can put them in the front yard, they can put them anywhere. It's not necessarily garden art, it's fine art, but this type of art you can put anywhere, because it'll go nice in your front yard, side of your house, in your garden. It will go nice anywhere. And so that's where I'm at today. And so what I'm going to do is move the camera in closer and just give you guys a kind of an aerial shot coming down so you can see kind of what I'm doing. You won't see my face in the shot, but you'll hear my voice and my hands and all that stuff. So let me go ahead and get the camera to position so I can get you guys a better shot of this. All right, so I'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back. So this is kind of a overhead view of this thing. As you can see, inside, I put this wall up and tacked it on the inside. And the reason I do that is just easier to lay this piece flat on the table, as flat as I can get it. This table is pretty warped. I'm gonna have to go ahead and buy either a couple new tables or just buy a large new table that's, you know, very flat. But with me like making the curls that you saw outside that the other leaf is made from, as I was extending the pieces apart from each other to weld them, the table was just bending, just curling up. And I guess this is a 14 gauge metal, and they put some kind of rivets or turns in it, not rivets but turns, to try and get it to strengthen it. But it had no chance against those large pieces I had. So I had to try and bend it back and straighten it out as much as I could, but it's nowhere near straight. So I laid this piece on this table. I put the wall up here, and then I just kind of push it in. I get this pry bar, and I put like a clamp on the table so I can take it and pry it in, get it close to get this wall close to this flat piece. Then I'll tack it. I just follow it all the way around. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing on this side. I'm going to move this inside of this clamp here. Just get it in as close as I can. And then I will just take this front and just kind of get it close to this other wall. It doesn't have to be exactly touching, but it should be close, because when you weld in there, you don't want to get too much weld, just your weld wire going through. And if I TIG weld, I want them touching or almost touching. I want them touching, but if I can't get them to touch, I just have to do like a lay wire technique, where you just lay your TIG rod in between the two pieces and you just put heat on it, and you'll see that the TIG rod just running to both sides and just filling in the gap. So what I'm going to do right now is just lay it on here and just start kind of tacking it up. And that's a technique you guys would use whenever you're building anything. It doesn't have to just be the piece like this. It can be a 8-foot tall sculpture. It can be a 9-foot or 10-foot tall sculpture. It'll all be done basically the same. You lay your flat piece of thick metal on your table, and then you run your thinner walls along the side. Well, there's other ways of doing it, but this is just one way I found to get this down and put this next to it, and then when you turn it over, this wall will not be extending way above the other wall. So I just try and get it as flat as I can so I can lay this on the table, and I know that it's fairly close to the outer portion of this, so when I turn it over, it'll be fairly smooth and not have this big wall sticking up where I have to take my grinder or cut-off wheel or something and cut it off. It'll be fairly close. All right, so let me get a few tacks in here. Make sure my welder is where it's supposed to be. I had it set for 10 gauge, but now I just reset it for 1/4 inch. And this core 10 is, I think it's a 10 or 11 gauge. And this wall is like 16 or 14 gauge, somewhere in there. So I just set it for 1/4 inch just to get it really to burn in. All right. And one of the advantages of putting tack bolts on the inside is that when you weld your piece, if you don't tack weld on the inside and you get your piece all welded up, when you grind your welds off to smooth everything out, it could be weak in some certain areas, and over time, your wall and your flat plate could come apart because there's nothing holding it together because you ground most of the weld off. So I like to do a lot of inside welds just to hold everything in place. So when I grind, I'm not concerned about, you know, the two pieces coming apart. But on pieces like leaf and ivy, when we TIG weld it, we don't grind them off. We leave the TIG weld there just for texture and a little bit of depth and, you know, just a little bit of more interest. It's only when we do pieces like reaching and those pieces, like the triangle piece we called, I can't remember the name of that piece, but pieces like that, they just look better when they're ground down and they're smooth on the edges. But then certain pieces look better when you leave that TIG weld or MIG weld on the edge. So the piece you saw ivy just a few minutes ago, we didn't grind the edges of that. We just left the weld around the perimeter, and it just gives it more character. All right, let me go ahead and tack this first piece in. And I'm trying to get it, when I put the wall to the flat piece, I don't want a gap at all. I want it tight because I'm going to TIG weld that. So I want that as tight as I can get it. So I'm just taking my hand, just pushing this in until it touches this flat piece. So I want it touching the flat piece and I want it touching the table. So I'm kind of pushing down at the same time. And if this was a long piece, a long straight piece, I would take my roofer square and I would put it here and run it up against that wall to make sure that wall is at a 45-degree angle from this flat piece. But since this is not necessarily straight, it doesn't have to have, doesn't have to be, perfectly going down. I can kind of play around with this. Don't really need this because I'm going to be expanding the walls out to get that top piece in anyway. And this doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I mean, it can have waves and whatever. I'm gonna just take the pry bar and pry it out and stuff that in there, so it really doesn't matter. And this piece of metal that I'm using right here was not exactly wide enough for the leaf pattern. I just took some scrap metal that I had over there, some core 10, and just used it. So this section right in here on the flat piece is a little bit straight because there wasn't enough metal to make that rounded outer edge. So what I'm gonna do is just take this with its rounded edge, butt it up against it fairly close, and then just weld it in. I'm not going to make this butt completely up against this wall or the flat piece because it'll be a flat spot here. So I'm gonna keep it rolled and just get it in tight and then just tack it. And there will be, it looks like about a, I don't know, 3/16 gap there, which I can just fill that in with weld. That's not a big deal. I'd rather do that than to get it in there tight and then you have this flat spot on the piece. I'd rather not do that. So I'll just get it in here. Let's see what I can do here. One of the most important things you guys can do when you start welding, if you haven't already started, learn how to fill or bridge gaps, because you'll always have gaps when you're doing this kind of stuff. Like I say, there's the lay wire technique, where you're, as opposed to if you're TIG welding, normally you would run your heat, keep your puddle going, you dip your rod, run it, dip, run, dip, run, dip, run, dip, run, dip. But when you have a big gap, you would take your wire and just lay it in there, in that gap. And just take your, like I was saying earlier, just take your TIG rod and just go over the TIG rod. You can manipulate it left, right if you want to your TIG rod, or you can just have it go on a straight line. And that metal, the TIG rod will just go to both sides of the metal and just close the gap. But it's very important to learn how to do that when you're doing stuff like this, because you will have a gap, and you don't want your gap to be too wide, because in some cases you won't be able to fill that gap, and that won't be good. So I'm taking this right here now, and I'm just pushing it in here and prying it out, using this as a brace. And when I pry this out, it's pushing this metal in to touch in here, because I want it to touch here. I did not want it to touch necessarily here in this flat spot, but I want it to touch here to follow the arc here. So that's why I have a pry bar here, and I'm pushing it out. And that's really tightening it up in here. This wall is touching the flat portion because of this bar. These are just little things you learn as you go. But with you guys, I mean, it took me a while to figure that out, but I'm telling you guys what to do so you won't have to go through what we went through to try and figure out how to close gaps. You use pry bars, you use clamps, you use whatever you can use to get that metal to suck together. And I have these here with these pieces of square tube to lock this down to the table, because without this tube I can't get this clamp here, because it'll be hitting that wall. So that's the reason these I have this square tube here with these clamps on it. It's locking this flat portion to the table, so it's not sliding when I'm moving this around. It's in its position where it should be. And this will probably be it might be the last tack I'll get in here before I put this piece in, because I don't want these portions too tight, because I won't be able to get that piece in there. So I want to leave them kind of loose, just to get it in, kind of fit it up, and then just start tacking. Now on the bottom, on this piece on the table, I can tack it from the inside, but the piece I'm going to lay on top, I can't do it from the inside. It'll just be tacked from the upper portion. And like I said, the reason I tack inside is because when I grind welds off on pieces I'm going to grind off, I don't want to get the area too thin, and they'll over years they'll break apart. So once I grind them, I try and keep as much weld there as I can, even though the people's eye can't see the weld will be there, just be blended in with the rest of the metal. All right, so I got that part kind of where I want it. So let me get the upper portion. And you'll see me trying to manipulate the metal as best I can, and clamping it down, and doing everything else I can do just to keep it where I want it, because oftentimes I'll take that piece, put it on top, it'll want to fall down into the piece. And if I was doing a base, like a flat base or something, I could just put some blocks underneath that piece, underneath the base portion, and then when I put the top on, those blocks would hold the top to the level I want it to be. I'll just tack it all up, lift the base up, move the blocks out, and keep welding. But with this, I put blocks inside of here. I can't get them out because they'll be welded inside. So it makes it a little bit more challenging when you're dealing with something like this. Let me grab this top. I'm going to have to buy some new magnets. I have these things from Harbor Freight, but they're absolute garbage. I'm gonna have to go to my supplier and get some from them. The powerful ones. Even have a button on them. You can hit the button and it'll magnetize. Then when you're ready to release it, you hit the button and it'll release. I need to go ahead and spend a few $100s or whatever it is to get some of those, because these are absolute garbage. If I put these on there on that wall, the piece will most likely just fall in. It's like these not even holding it. Maybe I'll just grab a few more of their magnets and try and put them in like multiple places like I normally do, but maybe I'll use a few more magnets this time just to see if that'll work. I doubt it, but I'll give it a shot. These magnets worked fine when I was working on, a 65 Mustang to hold the panels in place while I tack those up. Small stuff or small desktop pieces, they're fine. But when you're trying to handle 11, 10 gauge pieces like this that are heavy, these things don't hold worth anything. All right, let me see if I can get this thing in here. Just get it touching somewhere in here so I can just put a tack on it. Let me see. And I'm gonna look down here and just see if it's close. This top piece is close to the bottom piece. Because if it's not, your piece will be kind of warped, misshaped. I don't want that. It's not too bad. Move it down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just right at this top portion, just put a tack on it because it's fairly close. I'm just going to tack that spot right there. Not too bad. Always have your screwdrivers handy so you can stick them in there in those tight spots and lift your piece up. There's all kind of little tricks you can use. All right, that's pretty close. Not bad. All right, so I got that first piece tacked in. Now just, that's kind of low. I might have to cut that out of there. Darn it. Maybe I'll leave that piece there and I'll just come back to it or something. But normally it's that the first one that gives you the most problems because it does not want to line up. It doesn't want to weld up. It just wants to give you problems. So that one wasn't too bad. Now the only problem I'm having now is it doesn't want to line up exactly with the wall lip. It wants to drop down in, and I can't have that. These are just some of the challenges you face. Not a big deal. So I'm just trying to get it fairly level with the wall here. And when I'm tacking, I'm using a MIG welder, of course, but I gotta keep in mind I'm going to TIG weld, so I don't want my MIG welds hanging over this way too far. I want to keep them as close to the edge as I can. So when I come back with my TIG welder, I'll just be able to go right over top of these welds and just continue on, and won't have these welds extruding out past that TIG weld. So I gotta keep all that stuff in mind while I'm doing this. So what you do is just follow the edge. Make sure you're not too deep. This piece is not too deep down in that wall. I just run my finger across, just make sure it's kind of smooth. And I just go through and just tack it in. And no, it's not really the magnets holding this up. It's this piece is laying on top of the wall. These magnets are absolutely terrible. Just going to make sure it seats down in. Now, don't want to put too many tacks on here, because I don't want to have to go over all those tacks with the TIG welder, because it can leave a high spot where those welds were. Even though I'm running the TIG welder hot, it can still leave a little hump where these tack welds are from the MIG welder. So I'm trying to use as few of the MIG weld tacks as I can, just for consistency when I'm welding with the TIG. Now this is the wall it's kind of flat. So I'm gonna take my clamp and bring it in just a little bit, but not much, because I don't want this area flat. I'll grab one of my 36-inch clamps and just go right across it, and just close it in just a little bit. I don't want much. I'll make sure that it still rolls and not come to a flat spot. I'm going to be TIG welding with 332nd TIG rod, so I don't want this gap too wide. Because if I do a lay wire technique, I want that rod to fit perfectly in that gap. I don't want that gap too wide. And this section right here is going to take a little bit of work with that TIG welder. I'm going to really push a lot of rod in there because of that gap. But guys, this is how you do it. A lot of patience, and you just keep going. You got to use different techniques, clamps and magnets and metal clamps, rubber clamps. You just use anything you can use to get this down in there, and then you start pulling it together. And before you know it, the two pieces or the four pieces will become one piece. Then you just go ahead and weld them up, and it's just one solid piece. But to get to that point, it just takes a little work. So I just popped it out a little bit. Go ahead and weld this portion here. And what you do is you just keep following it around, just like that. And before you know it, you'll be all done. All right, so now I gotta come over here and try and pull this piece because there's a little gap there. And what I'll do here to hold this down, because it wants to pop up, I'm gonna put this clamp on it. Just to kind of keep it from popping up. Yeah, it'll be there. I'll get it in just a second. It's just how it's done, guys. Almost there now. Because what I'm trying to do is just get this piece seated down in there before I clamp that piece, because if I clamp this piece welded, then this piece will be high and I have to try and force or bend this metal to get back down in there. So I just kind of clamp it with this just to hold it, keep it from popping up. Now what I'll do is get my get this guy, this other clamp, and close this gap. I think what I'll do is I'll clamp it to the table if I can, as opposed to clamping it to this, because this is rounded and this is going to want to slide. So I might be able to clamp to the table easier. Yep, just as I thought. Well, lock this guy in place, because it's trying to slide as I close the clamp. All right, that's better. All right. All right, I'll go ahead and a little bit more. I'll tack it on this side of the clamp. And then I can go ahead and release the clamp and move it further down. And guys, this is how you do it. Like I say, whether you're building a 10-foot sculpture, 2-foot sculpture, doesn't matter. This is how it's done. So all I need to do now is just pull this and just tack this in. Then I go to the other side and kind of pull this wall out in order for this to sit down in. Well guys, that's going to just about do it for this video. Just wanted to give you guys just kind of some insight into how we do it. And now it's just redundant, just doing the same thing on this other side. Just kind of match this. And then once I get it all tacked in, like I said before, I'll take my TIG welder and just go around everything and do it. This piece will be be easier and faster than the other piece, Ivy, because we only have one leaf. With Ivy, we had 3 leaves. So this will be just kind of a sped up process. And then after I get this all done, I'll do the bottom, put them together, then I'll build the base. I'll probably have it done later today or more likely tomorrow. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. And this is Brian Tubbs, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Hopefully I'll have this done so I can let you guys see what it looks like, and then we'll move on with the next project, whatever that might be. All right, guys, look forward to seeing you on the next one. As usual, peace out.